Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News, the South Florida Conservative News Center, Monday, April 6, 12:11 in the afternoon, waiting for the White House to come on at 1 o'clock and probably show you the two pilots that were rescued in Iran in the last few days. Putting it out there because there's a degenerate gambling channel they wanted me to put some stuff on, but that's going to be my pick for the day is those two pilots are going to be on the White House briefing. If they're not, I would be surprised. So anyway, what has occurred at the same time is equally or more important, depending on how you look at it. There is a vote at the United Nations that tells you everything that you need to know about the future of global power without you having to read about it in other places. The Bahrain-backed resolution at the UN Security Council is calling for all defensive means necessary to secure shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The Arab states whose economies live and die by that waterway are largely in favor. A number of other countries that you've heard of largely in favor. The big turd in the punch bowl is communist China. Beijing is warning of escalation and of consequences and instability. And on the surface, the divide looks simple. One side wants the strait open, the other fears what it takes to open it. And that's not what's really happening. Once again, I will tell you the strait is not closed. Go to Ship Tracker if you must. Realize there are no mines in the water. The idea, well, anyway, we've done enough videos. Our position is it is not closed, it is a political tool. And that's not what's actually happening here as we're talking about opening the strait. Because the real divide isn't over whether Hormuz should be open, it's over who gets to open it and who controls what comes next. Almost every major economy in the world depends on that narrow stretch of water, except for the United States. Oil flows through it, gas flows through it, entire industrial systems depend upon it. So there is consensus. Yes, India wants it open, Japan wants it open, Europe wants it open, the Gulf states need it open. There is no serious argument there, but this is where the system breaks. There is no agreement on how to secure it, although we have given you many choices, none of which have been yayed or nayed by the State Department or DOD. For decades, the answer used to be automatic. The United States would step in, naval forces would escort shipping, threats would be contained, and the lane would be secured. It was treated as a public good, something the system relied on but did not question. The assumption is now gone. Today, reopening Hormuz isn't just a military question, it is a question of authority because securing the strait doesn't just protect shipping, it establishes control over the system that governs the shipping. And not every country is comfortable with that. You've seen we just did a video recently, and on our written side, I think actually, what would happen if America decides to, the American style of insurance catches on with shipping. It is a death knell for the communists in Beijing. So there are three camps that are emerging here. The first is very straightforward. The United States and its closest partners support enforcement, convoys, escorts, rules of engagement, restore order, reduce uncertainty, keep the oil moving. The spice must flow for all of you Dune fans out there. Operational logic, familiar territory, it's that, right? The second group is more complicated. Countries like Indonesia, India, Brazil, they want the strait open, but they don't want to be pulled into a war. They don't want to endorse a system that looks like Western control dressed up as global security. And they want stability without alignment, and it's pretty much their usual game. And they want protection without entanglement. Once again, same, same. And that's not a weakness, that is a strategy. We do give India a little bit extra rope as a member of the Quad Alliance because it has to keep its ships open to keep the Chinese at bay, they and the other three countries. Then there is the third camp, and that's China, Russia, whoever else wants to be evil that week, and those aligned with them. They oppose enforcement outright. or they want to slow it down or dilute it or wrap it in language about escalation and restraint. But it isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about preventing control. Because these countries are operating in the gray zone with what we hear about ghost tankers and a gray fleet and millions and millions of dollars and billions of gallons of oil just disappearing and showing up somewhere else and money changing hands and nobody knows what's happening. It doesn't just disappear when the crisis ends, right? It becomes the new normal. And that's what's being contested. This is where the situation gets more interesting and even more revealing. China doesn't need to convince the world that it's right. It just needs to make sure no one else can act cleanly. And of course, the UN is perfect for that. At the UN Security Council, that is enough. A veto, an abstention, a delay, that's all it takes to prevent a unified mandate. And without that mandate, enforcement becomes fragmented. Countries will hesitate, coalitions become informal, legitimacy becomes questionable, and time passes. And in this environment, time is power. Because while everybody debates naval escorts and rules of engagement, the real control mechanism is operating somewhere else entirely, and that is in the interest of the United States and a number of other people, and that is in the insurance for global shipping. Shipping doesn't move because it's allowed to move, it moves because it's insured. I would say you could go to what's all about all I think it's called All About Shipping. That's one channel on YouTube. G Captain, also another one, although he's gotten pretty leftist lately. Fuck him. But otherwise, he does a good job in general. You can look at that and understand how nothing in shipping moves without insurance. So if the insurers pull back, which is the English, by the way, that's Lloyd's of London, if risk can't be priced, oh, the Chinese also subsidize themselves. So who knows if there's any money if a ship would crash. The ships don't sail. It doesn't matter how many warships are in the water. But if someone steps in to guarantee that risk, then the system moves again. And whoever provides that guarantee controls the system, right? Who sails, what cost? That's the real prize. Not just reopening Hormuz, which is open, but controlling the financial architecture behind it, which is what stops most of these ships from moving, is that Lloyd's has either raised the price or will not insure ships to move through there. So if the United States steps into that role, which it has made the offer, especially in the last week, it's finalizing the documentation, up to $40 billion covered. If it becomes a guarantor of maritime risk, it doesn't just secure the strait, it reshapes global trade. And that is exactly what China is trying to prevent. They are not worried about stability, they're worried about control. So when you hear the world wants Hormuz open, that's true, but it is an incomplete statement because wanting the outcome is not the same as agreeing on the mechanism. And right now, the mechanism is the battlefield, naval power, financial leverage, political legitimacy, all converging into a narrow stretch of water. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a choke point anymore. And whoever sets the rules there and who controls the system of whether the consensus is there in a divided world is enough to produce action, so far the answer is no. Because in this environment, as we said, a consensus is not power, but the control is. So that's all we have for you now. Let's hope, like I said, that you'll have these two pilots on the 1 o'clock show. Um, Everything else has been ridiculous surrounding this as far as wanting to bring back, the stuff the Democrats in Congress are saying about Trump being insane and how we've wasted these aircraft. If you see the amount of aircraft and lives that used to be lost trying to save American pilots in Vietnam, you would know that the United States puts a premium on its service people. And anybody who says differently is a fucking asshole. But that's just me. So, and those generals, by the way, that story's false that they're going to sue because God knows they don't want a discovery to come up of what it is that they were really fired for. Just me again. So, where is it? Anyway, have a good day. Hope you all enjoyed your Easter. and we will talk to you all later on. Goodbye.